Zurich Film Festival. Conversations that celebrate cinema. 'Cause life is better with movies. This episode is presented by Deadline.
Hi. So, my name is Melanie Goodfellow, and I am the international film correspondent for Deadline Hollywood. It gives me absolute pleasure to be here today to moderate the masterclass with Claire Foy. We just wanted to apologise for the late start. It's not Claire's fault. Her flight was cancelled this morning, so I'd just actually like to say a big thank you to Claire for still coming and making the journey, because it was a bit of a tricky one. So it's great to have her here. Hopefully Claire's going to be coming down, and when she comes down, let's give her a big round of applause. Just waiting. Jump the gun. Oh, here she comes. Fantastic.
Thank you. Sorry, it was a long way down. You didn't have to keep clapping that whole time.
Thanks for clapping. You deserve it. Anyway, it's a real pleasure to be here with you in Zurich. So you're going to be getting the Golden Eye Award this evening. And also there's the international premiere of your film H is for Hawk, which has just played in Telluride. Mm-hmm. I know the Deadline critic loved it. I think his headline speaks for itself. He says, Claire Foy soars in this drama. So your performance is already really interesting people and getting attention. But I just wanted to, have you been to Zurich before, to this festival before?
I have been to this. I can't, there's a photo outside and I look much younger in it. And so I was trying to figure out when that was. But I think it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I did a film called Breathe.
Oh yeah, of course.
With Andrew Garfield, and he won the Golden Eye.
Oh, so
I feel like it's somehow, I mean, it's gone full circle. I don't know whether it has. But yeah, it's very nice to be receiving it.
And I mean, you've received loads of awards for your performances, but is this your first career award? Achievement award?
Yes.
But I mean, you're very young, so I mean, it's like...
I'm not very young.
Yes, you are.
But I think so, yeah.
And does that make you, does that have an impact? Does that make you sort of think a little bit while you're on the plane? Like, oh, what have I achieved? You know, not really.
Well, I think it's, you never feel like you, we actually watched Mads Mikkelsen's speech because when he won a Lifetime Achievement Award, and he was saying that he always felt like he was the youngest. And I suppose you never really, I think from the outside, people can view you and your career in a specific way. But I think when it's you always think you've never, not that you've never done quite enough, but you don't really deserve that. It's other people get those things, but why would I get it? So but I suppose it's lovely for it to be here with H is for Hawk, and get the award in relation to that. That's really nice.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get a lot more Lifetime Achievement Awards too.
If I
this is your first one. But
that would be great.
Let's talk about, I thought what we'd do is you talk about H is for Hawk, go a little bit back into your past and then go to the future, what's happening next. So, but H is for Hawk, based on this 2014 book by Helen Macdonald. And it reunites you with Philippa Lothorpe. Did she direct you in The Crown too? Or were you?
She did, yeah, in The Crown, yeah. We did, I think it was series 2 that Philippa did. I know that they'd wanted her to do quite a lot of it before.
Right.
And I think she was a bit nervous about, because Philippa's trained in documentary filmmaking, so she made an incredible TV series called in the UK called The Three Sisters, or Three Daughters. And she's very artistically minded when it comes to making things. So and then when I worked with her on The Crown, I just really enjoyed how she works and how honest she is about how she makes things. And then I did a film with Dee Gardner, who's the producer. I did Women Talking.
Yes, yeah.
And when we were doing the publicity for Women Talking, we started talking about H is for Hawk, and I read the book, it kind of really meant a lot to people. It's a book about grief, basically, and I think most of the people who are involved in making the film have some connection to the book in some way. That it's very significant in their life. It either helped them with the loss of someone, or they found it at a moment when they needed it most. And so that's what I felt when I read it. I had a very strong, visceral reaction to it.
Mm. I mean, without spoiling it, because people might not have read the book or they're going to watch the movie tonight. You play a young academic. It's 2007, and there's a personal tragedy that kind of sets her off kilter, and she buys a goshawk and trains this goshawk, and that's kind of my big question. I was watching it thinking, oh my goodness. I mean, you've got Brendan Gleeson, Lindsay Duncan, and Denise Gough are in the cast. Really lovely cast. But your main co-star is the goshawk. Can you just talk a little bit more? Because I was listening to some interviews for preparation for this, and you were talking about once when you had to work with an elephant in Breathe, and you didn't really like it very much.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know whether I worked with the elephant. The elephant was there, and it turned out, and we drove at it. It turned out the elephant wasn't a trained, it wasn't a TV or film elephant. It was a wild elephant. It was very low budget. And I was told, yeah. And this, it was a very, very ethical production, Breathe. But I was terrified because it was just me and Andrew in a Jeep and a giant elephant. And they kept the bull elephant with a baby up the hill. So the elephant was just always trying to get back to the baby.
Oh, okay.
And so there was just a vibe. There was a vibe of just, the elephant doesn't want to be here. And I had to stand up and touch the elephant in a sort of spiritual way. And I just could not sell it because I was like, trying to stroke the elephant. So, I mean, goshawks are slightly less terrifying, I'd say, than an elephant in that capacity. Although I suppose some people would think there's, I've referred to as psychopaths, goshawks. So I presume a lot of people would rather meet an elephant.
So that is the question. So you were offered this, you love the book. And I was just wondering, how on earth did you act with this goshawk? Because I'd been terrified. It's got this really beady eye and it's like sort of beak. I'd have been worried that it was going to poke my eye out or something. And sometimes when you've got the goshawk on your arm, you look absolutely kind of determined not to be scared and to control it. And I was wondering, is that acting or is that just, were you absolutely, I mean, how did it all work? How did you get to know the goshawk?
Well, I obviously got to know these incredible birds before we started shooting. And we had incredible, I'd say handlers, but basically they own, Dee Gardner, before we started shooting this film, had to buy some eggs. She had to buy some goshawk eggs. So even when this film was like a twinkle in the eye of being made, she had to buy the goshawk eggs to have them be born and then to raise them and rear them so they'd be exactly the right age for the making of the film. So a year in advance, she owned some goshawks. She was in Hollywood and they were in near Wales, in Bristol, basically in England. And the owner of who was looking after the birds is a man called Lloyd and his amazing wife Rose, and they only ever work on nature documentaries, and so they do all David Attenborough's work when they're doing with birds and things like that. So they have a completely different approach. The idea of making a film is quite foreign to them. And so I went and met them and I trained with them. And the training is basically to allow the bird to get used to you and to trust you. And to allow the bird to trust you, you just have to be incredibly patient and kind and compassionate. And it's kind of like a house spider, a goshawk in a way. You're terrified of it, but it's more terrified of you. And that would seem strange because goshawks are natural killers, they're predators, but there's this giant human that they're attached to that they can't get away from, and I just had such compassion for them. I felt so sympathetic towards them, and Helen is in the book she is so, there's so much humanity to the way she talks about rearing a goshawk and allowing it to be allowing the goshawk, allowing a human being to be there when it's hunting, that I just thought that was the key to it. And as soon as I knew it was vulnerable, I wasn't afraid anymore. And I think that was the moment that they became more comfortable with me. And I'm just scared of bigger animals, horses, elephants, things like that could run at me.
So it wasn't just one goshawk, there were
5, yeah.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
Wow.
who all had different specialities. So we had two hawks who were, one was a hunting hawk, so called Lottie, who she wasn't domesticated, so I would only ever be with her when we were hunting, and that was a very different very intense, and she's an incredibly charismatic bird to be around because she was totally alert the whole time. And then we had two Mabels, who were the chicks, who were the eggs that we had, and they had to be a certain stage of development, which is to be afraid of me, one Mabel to be afraid of me, and one Mabel to be very closely tied to me. And then we had a third one, Jess, who is a goshawk, who lives in Scotland, who is very unlike all goshawks and actually sort of wants to be around human beings. And they all had their different personalities, and I loved all of them by the end.
So how long did you take preparing for this film? It must have been a real investment in your time and energy.
Well, not necessarily, because I mean, I knew about the book for a good year and a half before we started shooting. So Helen was sort of in my head, I suppose you could say. And but I didn't train with the birds until about 2 weeks before we started shooting.
My goodness! Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I really recommend you see this film because it's a great performance, but also there's a human side of the story where, again, not to give too much away, but what happens to her knocks her mentally, and she doesn't really understand what's happening to herself, and people around kind of do, but don't either. And I have read like the interview you gave to The Guardian where you talked about you had suffered from anxiety and kind of a mental setback when you first moved to London as an actress. And I was wondering whether that had fed into your interpretation of Helen's character, whether you'd used those experiences.
I think that Helen, so Helen wrote the book 7 years after the initial, what you see in the film. So she speaks herself about the fact that she was a different person when she wrote the book. So she lost her father very, very suddenly. And she, as I think, there's no right way to grieve. I think, and especially in the kind of Western culture, we're sort of terrified of death and grieving, and it's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And we all sort of pretend it's not happening, and then it happens, and we have to kind of face it. And I think it's very difficult to face it. And Helen didn't sort of run in the opposite direction to the grief of her father, but she sort of put it somewhere else. And all of her focus went on to a sort of pathological need to live. And I think that was the connection with the goshawk, which was to be so close to death that you're alive. And I think that's how that helped her. I think that Helen's way of dealing with the grief, I think I have just sort of a real empathy and understanding of when people are behaving outside of what everyone's comfortable with. Like everyone just sort of wants everyone to behave and be okay, just be okay. And she couldn't be okay. She wasn't okay. And I think we just really struggled with that. And so I just really appreciate how it was out there. She was, it was there for everybody to see. She had a massive bird on her arm. She wasn't dealing with things very well. And people still weren't brave enough to say, what do you need? Like, what do you need from me in this moment? And Christina, who Denise Goff.
Yes.
It's also a real story of friendship and not abandoning people when they're being very difficult because of a circumstance, that she was grieving and couldn't articulate herself, but her friend knew her well enough to be there for her even when she didn't ask for it. Yeah, there
is a bit of a lesson there because the Christina character, because Helen is quite nasty, not nasty, but quite dismissive of her, but she just persists. And so it's actually I think it's a good film for everybody to watch in terms of just how to deal with somebody when they're going through a hard time, because I think in today's world we just kind of move on, and like you say, we want everybody to be normal and
okay.
Okay.
But so, life's not really, the death of a loved one is catastrophic in lots of ways. And, it's that thing about how you have compassionate leave or something. It's like 4 days. And then it's like, get back to work. Like that's what you're supposed to do. In so many other cultures, there's huge amounts of time that are dedicated to honouring the life of someone and grieving and giving the person who's grieving space and time to do that. But we're just like straight back on it. And pretend that everything's all right.
Anyway, it's a very powerful film, and I was blubbing at the end. So, but even though the end isn't incredibly dramatic, but it's a very moving film. And Brendan Gleeson, how was that working with him?
That was there's always like a massive fear. I think probably most actors have it, but if I'm the first person attached to something, I just presume every other actor's going to say, I don't want to do it. It's such a, so it's like being sort of waiting for people to say yes to come into your birthday party or something. It's quite a scary concept. And so when he said he wanted to do it, I didn't quite believe it. I have admired him for such a long time. I think he's extraordinary. I think he's really got a real integrity as an actor, and you sort of feel it coming off the screen. He's incredibly honest, and sort of I sort of feel like it's impossible for him to lie when he's just so connected to everything, and that's what he's like in real life. We only had like 5 days or something shooting, but they were a dream, and I really soaked everything about him. I just soaked him up, and I just loved how he viewed the film. He said that he wanted to, he wanted to portray more good men on screen. Like, it was nice. It was an honor for him he said, to play a good father, like someone who was a good man. And it's rare that you have father-daughter relationships as well. And it mirrors their actual relationship. They're incredibly close, but Brendan is everything you would dream of and more, basically. He's not a letdown in any way, shape or form. He's just amazing.
Because I think that's his performance as well, and I think that's the whole thing in the film. It's not like the performances are quiet, but they're controlled. They're just very natural, and he's only, like you say, he's only on screen a bit, but you completely understand who this charismatic photographer father was. You completely understand why the family feels like it feels.
Oh, it's an absence, You feel his absence, which I think was really
amazing that he can achieve that with just a few scenes, that you then feel it.
Because he's amazing.
Yeah. So, I wanted to, as I said, like, talk about H's for Hawk, which I'm really excited to see how the audience receives it, and I really do think there's going to be like awards buzz around it. I just feel like there's in your performance. I think it's great, but I wanted to sorry, no pressure. No, I do think it's fantastic. Sort of going back to the beginning. Reading your Wikipedia, I think it's like born in Stockport and then grew up in Buckinghamshire. Yeah. But I just wondering where did you get this kind of acting bug from? Why did you think you could make it? Where did it all begin? As a child, the child or the teenager?
Yeah, no, I certainly didn't have a bug or think I could make it. I think I'm quite an unlikely recipient of this situation. I think I'm the youngest of 3 children, and of a very large family, and so I got used to being ignored and then wanting not to be ignored. So I was very loud and very big, and I think tried to get lots of attention. And you'll find that's a thread between lots of actors, is that they just search for that attention all their life, and then they get it in some way, whether that's just like being on stage or being on TV or whatever it is. It's just that thing of having people be like, oh, I exist, is basically the thing. But I didn't have it wasn't connected to anything. I think I just had a lot of energy and was quite hyper. And then when I became a teenager, I sort of went the opposite direction. I suddenly went, oh God, no, don't, I'm embarrassed by myself, don't look at me, and just sort of wanted to disappear in the ground to swallow me up. And so I sort of avoided anything that was in any way involved anybody looking at me. And then, but I loved drama, I loved theatre. I loved going to the theatre, even though I very rarely did. But when I did, it was like a seminal moment, because it was such an infrequent thing. And I loved going to the cinema. That was like my favourite thing to do. I saw Titanic like 12 times or something obscene. And it was a large proportion of that was Leonardo DiCaprio, but it was also the cinematic experience. And I just didn't know anybody who did it. So I didn't know anyone in the world. So to me, it was like Twinkly, Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, the movie biz. It was so glamorous and extraordinary. So I went to university and did drama and film because I thought I would love to have done something like possibly, ridiculous cinematography or something like that. something behind the scenes, and then did a awful thing where I sent my like CV, which had nothing in it apart from working in really odd jobs, to various, what I thought were production houses. So like, Warner Brothers and like awful in London, to places in Soho saying, I'd love some work experience. I never heard back from a single one. So I just didn't understand how anyone did it, basically. And then this is a really long-winded answer, sorry. And then in the final year of university, I thought, I'm going to have to do some more plays because I want to do it. And I sort of was brave enough by then, and I did. And one of my lecturers was kind of like, have you thought applying for drama school? And I was like, oh, I wouldn't presume that I could really. And he was like, I think you should. And I was like, okay. And I'd already secretly thought about it, but no, it was a foreign concept to me. And I thought it was all going to be like jazz hands and like fame. And I luckily got into the Oxford School of Drama. And that was where I suddenly went, oh my God, no, I actually want to do this. This is what I want to do. I want to do the, all the pretending stuff. I want to live in a room that isn't mine and make everything real to me. Then I suddenly was like, oh my God, okay. And then I just tried to do it.
So
basically,
you came to London.
Yeah,
I think you were living in this big house with other drama students.
Yes, I was.
And you did have you got a lot of work. I mean, you got Little Dorrit, I think, was your big.
Did get Little Dorrit, yeah.
And I'm just reading these out here because I won't remember off my head. Like Going Postal. Season of the Witch, I don't think you're very happy about.
I mean, Season of the Witch was the most incredible experience.
With Nicolas Cage.
With Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I was like 23. I'd done a play, and I'd done a British TV show, and then I was in Budapest with Nicolas Cage. I was like, what on earth? It was extraordinary. And I thought that's what all films were like, and it turns out they aren't.
Right. Why was it chaotic?
I mean, it was just, I suppose it was pre-2008 financial crash? Yes, it was.
Right.
So, was it? Hang on.
Was it date? I should have the date here.
I think it was. But I think it was to me anyway, now it makes sense. I was like, people were getting private jet. I wasn't, but people were getting helicopters and private jets and like shooting all day until the next day. And I think it was just that doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know whether it really existed then. It was my only experience of it. It may have just been that film. But it was just the most extraordinary experience. And also to work with an absolute living legend that is Nicolas Cage was, and I was the only woman in that film. So it was just like, I was like, what is going on?
Do you play a girl who's suspected of being a witch?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And then you kind of save yourself, or they save you, and it's...
Well, I don't want to ruin it for everyone.
Yes, somebody gets saved.
But actually it turns out that I am Satan himself, and I need to be exorcised because I'm the devil.
So could your career have taken a very different turn?
I mean, I think it already did. No, I think, I loved doing it. No, I don't think my career could have taken any turn than the one it's taken, because fundamentally, I'm the one who makes the decisions about what I do. I think when you first start, there's just an absolute desire to acquire knowledge and acquire experience, like there is in every single profession, which I think is totally the right way to go. I think a lot of people don't have that luxury nowadays as younger actors, because so much exposure very early on, and if you're supposed to be something as soon as you do something, and I think you need a lot of space to get it wrong and to fail and to work out I don't know, not work out it's not like you can work it out, but it's just gathering knowledge and experience. And suddenly, I'd been acting at drama school and having, 5 hours to do Stanislavski methods on my own. And then suddenly you're on set and it's like panic stations. Oh my God, how do I do this? What's the camera doing? Not knowing what's happening. And you just acquire the knowledge, I think. And I think then once you've acquired that knowledge, you know what you kind of want to do, what you don't want to do. If you're in a very, very fortunate position, very privileged, you can then start saying, I don't want to do that, actually. I'm going to choose to do something possibly a bit stranger, or something that people wouldn't expect, or where my artistic, I suppose, creative instinct is taking me, as opposed to I need this job because I need to pay the rent, which is what happens a lot.
So, and also you went back on stage and played Lady Macbeth, was that?
I
correct?
did.
Opposite James McAvoy.
Yes,
You then
that was
were in
incredible.
The Sun with much later on.
Yes, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
And that's so this is all pre The Crown, and then you also were in The Lady in a Van.
Yes, I was in The Lady in the Van.
That was Maggie Smith. What was that like working with her?
I mean, I was pregnant, and I very, very loosely knew Nicholas Heitner, and he was just like, "Do you want a job for like half a day?" I was like, "Yes, please," because I wasn't doing anything, and I went and met Maggie, and I had one line in it, but I loved the play. That was one of the plays I'd seen. I saw The Lady in the Van with my mum, and I saw Long Day's Journey into Night, and those are the two things that were ingrained in my memory as the theatre that I'd seen. And so I was like, I'll do anything. I want to be in it. And I got to be a social worker who tried to give her some coats, and she was just so kind to me, and generous, and she didn't need to be. And apparently she told Nick I like her after I left. And I was like, can you write that down and I'll keep it forever? I don't know why. Maybe she took pity on me because I was pregnant. And I was looking a bit harassed. But she was another one to tick off the list for sure.
Cool. And then sort of 2015. I'm sorry, I'm doing this in chronological. I didn't mean to do that.
I mean,
we're going that way. Then you sort of get this role of Anne Boleyn, King Henry VIII's second wife in Wolf Hall, and you win awards for that. Why did you?
I think I won an award.
Did you not do
I didn't win
an Academy of Television?
No, I got nominated.
Oh, nominated. Sorry, apologies.
Sorry. No, don't. No.
That. And I was reading up about it, and I'd forgotten this, that your execution scene, there were all these headlines saying viewers traumatized by there's all this. There was stories in the British press at the time when
the British press.
Yes, I know. But I mean, what did you like about that role? It was your first big Queen role, apart from Lady Macbeth, of course.
Well, I mean, that was a really interesting job for me. So I'd worked with Peter Kosminski before. We did something called The Promise, and I read Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies after sort of the moment had happened, like everyone had read it, because it said, Nicholas Heitner actually was quoted on the front of the book saying something like not everybody should read this book, but something alluding to the fact that this is an extraordinary book. And I went, well, I don't think I should be reading it then, because I'm not sure that I'm quite clever enough to be reading that book. And it just sort of seemed to be, to me, intellectual, which is now I sort of really resent that I ever thought that way, because now I read like everything. I read, and so I was just like, oh, I'll just give it a go. Read it, and I was obsessed with it. I could not stop thinking about him. The way that Hilary wrote the novel, that it was so visceral, and like it was like reading someone's diary, like day to day, what someone was thinking and doing. And I loved it so much. And then something happened. I was doing a TV show in Puerto Rico called,
I won't be able to tell you this.
Crossbones.
Oh, I didn't have that on my list.
With John Malkovich.
Oh, why don't I have it on my list? I'm sorry.
Because I don't think it was a huge success.
Maybe that's why.
But amazing. I was in Puerto Rico and I had fake tan on, first time in my entire life. And I had hair extensions, really long hair and fake tan. And for 6 months. And Peter said, can you put yourself on tape for Anne Boleyn? And I was just like, oh, for heavens. I was like, why am I putting myself through this? This is awful. Because in my head, I knew exactly what she was like, and she was in no way anything I could do as an actress. I knew exactly. She was sharp, angular in every way, I felt like, in Thomas Cromwell's description of her anyway in the novel. So I just thought, this is going to be painful. But part of me was like, oh, fine, I'll give it a go. And so I did an audition for Peter in my apartment in Puerto Rico with my fake tan on, and then didn't hear anything, surprisingly. And then came back to England, and he was like, will you come in again for it? And I was like, okay, fine. And then and went in for again. And I think probably she'd sort of cooked a bit. I sort of felt like within me, in a way that wasn't just me as the fan of the novel, that she'd sort of percolated a bit. And then I went in for the second time, and he was like, yeah, I think you should do it. And I was like, I just thought he was wrong. And then, it took me a while to get used to the fact that I would be doing it, especially with Mark Rylance. It was unbelievable. It was the job of a lifetime for me. That was absolutely, couldn't believe it.
Did you meet Hilary Mantel?
Yes, I did. And I asked her what she had for lunch.
Oh. What did she have for lunch?
I can't remember because I don't think I wanted to know the answer to that question. I think I just said, say something. Oh, hello, what do you have for lunch? Because we were at the catering. And I think she was like, oh dear.
So she didn't give you any notes or feedback? Or
no. And I didn't, I was a fan of hers, and that's never a good position to be meeting someone in, because it's very difficult to engage with someone as a human being when you're just going, I just want to tell them how much they mean to me. It's hard. So I didn't want to talk to her about the work. I just wanted to say how much I loved her writing. And I think that my role in that was to be the Anne that Thomas Cromwell saw, not the real Anne Boleyn. I wasn't doing a historical version of what people said or didn't say about her. I did as much research as, I loved researching that, and that was incredible. But it was to be a version of her. And I loved the version of her that Hilary had created. And that said enough to me. I was like, this woman understands women like this, and she sees them this way. So I was like, so I'll just do that. So that's what I just tried to do. I didn't try and interpret her.
Yeah.
I just tried to do what she had what she'd written as faithfully as possible, really. But yeah, extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary woman, and an aura of otherworldly genius in a way that I've not really ever seen, actually. Spiritually, she just sort of had an aura of, she was from a different time about her.
And then obviously we come to the other queen, the other big queen in your life,
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth II. I'm sure you must be sick of talking about this, because everybody still recalls you for this role in the crown. How did that come about? And I think you were heavily pregnant at the time when you auditioned. So how did this whole role come about, and why did you decide to take it on?
I mean, there's not really much choice when it's something that's that much of a leap for you as an actor, I don't think. I think you sort of just have to do it. And also Stephen Daldry was directing it.
Right, yeah.
So even though I was thinking they were mad, I was like, well, he's like, I mean, in my opinion, one of the greatest directors. And so an opportunity to work with him, just to audition for him, was really special. He did really strange things. He had me flirting with Winston Churchill as the Queen, as a very pregnant Queen, because he just had an interest in seeing where you could stretch a character and seeing what the where you could move an actor to. And I loved that, because it felt like someone was paying attention. It felt like someone was going, oh, you can do that, let's do more of that, let's change that. And that gives me sort of confidence when someone's actually not just thinking you're offering them the finished product. They're interpreting it and seeing what you can do with it. But yeah, no, I think I was 7 months pregnant. And I think, which gave me a level of, sure, I'll come in and do this thing. And Netflix hadn't done a series by then. They certainly hadn't done anything in the UK. It was like an unheard of thing. They had to do this whole equity contract. It was unknown. So when something's a little bit unknown, I immediately go to pessimist and go, well, it'll be a disaster then, because this hasn't been done before. So it's just, and they'd done the audience and they'd done the Queen, the film, and I was like, so this is the third one, so this is going to be the thing that brings it all down, which I'd had experience of before, by the way. So I had been backed up by bringing up the rear of something. Well, we did this once, let's try it again. And then the second time around they go, oh, wasn't that good? So I was just convinced that it was going to be a bit silly, me pretending to be the Queen. I just thought it would inherently be quite silly.
It's funny what you're saying, because now the crown just has become part of, like, especially in the UK, but even internationally, it's just always been there. It's not quite the Archers, but for a time it was really part of our kind of cultural fabric. And I've completely forgotten about it being like this really new pioneering series for Netflix. We forget now,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was totally unknown kind of territory. And also because it was very splashy, I suppose, in the way that they were spending so much money on it. so it was just it was a bit surreal, I suppose. And then when I actually started shooting it, I had a newborn baby. So I had, I think, looking back, even though it was sort of a very, very intense time for me as a person to be doing that and working, I think having that sort of thing, like, fundamentally what was more important was my child. So it was like, this is wonderful, but I'm also, this is the thing that I've got to concentrate on. So I think, not that I timed having a baby before doing that show, but it was a very fortunate that I think I had a huge amount of perspective when shooting the whole thing.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know how you did it, because I remember trying to go back to freelancing with too young, and it's very tricky. But
Tricky the word.
but it's good. But then, how did you build that character? Did you just really work from Peter Morgan's screenplay, or did you like watch newsreels of Queen Elizabeth to capture her, to like build the character? How did you do it?
I think for sure that was a really interesting process, because there were lots of different elements. So the voice was obviously huge, because I don't think I had realised before then. I'd played lots of different people with different voices, I suppose, accents, but how the royal family communicate is very indicative of how they are as people. And I think that William Conacher, who was the voice coach on that, was absolutely extraordinary, because he was very much about like mouth placement, movement of how you articulate. I'm going to keep doing this, but there's a lot of backward kind of when people are expressing themselves, and so the voice was a huge thing. She was a totally different essence to me as a person, so the physicality was huge as well. But for me, I think it was watching. I was very lucky to play her at the age that I did, and as in play her when she was, obviously pre-being crowned, being the Queen, and her evolving into it, because there was loads of footage of her as a younger woman, and she was much more unguarded. And so I had the ability, or the opportunity, I mean, as an actress, to be able to see her as a person, not as a figurehead. And so I just, and so many people, it's interesting, there's a certain thing that you can do when you're prepping for a role, which is what people say about themselves, what they say about other people, and how the world views them and what their views are of the world. So you can correlate things. And obviously Queen Elizabeth, what people say about her is a very long column. What she says about people, very, very short column. What she says about the world, very, very short. So it was really interesting. I was like, okay, so this is what people are saying. She's outdoorsy, she loves dogs, she's very humble, she's very kind, she's very generous to people, all these things, but she doesn't articulate herself at all. And so you have to take that and you get a real picture of what this woman is like. And it was a real honour to get to know my fictionalised version of her, I suppose. And a real honour to be cast in a role that was out of my remit as an actress, I think, at that point.
Did you ever get any feedback from royal channels about what they thought?
Other people did. Not me. But other people did. But I don't. That's the point, isn't it? We are. I don't know. I just I like that more than if if there'd been a letter in the post, it would have been. I would have been like, someone's faked that. But also, I just think that's the point of the institution, is you don't engage with that, and nor should you. And also, you've got to remember, she was a woman and someone was fictionalising her life. It's not like H is for Hawk, where Helen has been on board with the film the entire time. Their family were incredibly generous. They lent us her father's photography equipment. I had some of her belongings in the house that we shot in as set. They didn't want this to be made. She didn't want that, she didn't want her life to be. So I can imagine that, I wasn't expecting to hear from her.
So this is a ridiculous question, but when she did die, did you feel any kind of particular sensation because you had played her and people did know you? But that was people for a long time sort of associated you with that role?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's an interesting thing, because from the outside, I'm sure that people see me that way. I don't see myself that way. And whilst it's been absolutely a huge part of my career and my life, I've also played another, 20
roles, which I'm about to go on to now.
Yeah. No. But as in, like, so to me, yes. But I didn't know her. And I don't in any way want to make assertions that I did. I didn't know her personally at all. I made it up. And that's really important to remember as a drama. I was as touched and moved as everyone was, I think, when she passed away, from the position of someone who admired her and from the outside saw her as a mother and a grandmother and a great grandmother, and also, the head of the monarchy.
Yeah.
But I certainly wasn't there going, oh, well, I lay no claim in any way. And nor should I don't think.
No. But so obviously that role comes to an end because Olivia Colman takes up the role as she gets older. So that was like around about 2017, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
And were you worried about being typecast in Queen roles? Is that why? Because you went on and did very, very different roles after that. But
no, I don't think so. I think by that point I had been working for like a good 10 years. So I'd sort of, I think, managed to navigate that whole thing. But and I don't think I was certainly, there aren't that many more queens, to be honest. So
you could do some European ones.
Yeah, yes. But so it wasn't as if I was, and I don't think anybody was under any illusion that I was like really posh or anything like that. So it wasn't like I was suddenly offered loads of posh roles or anything. No, I don't think I wasn't, basically, is the short answer. Yeah. I wasn't. I think if the message I'd got was, this is all you can do, so you better stick to it, I would have done. But I didn't feel that way about what I could do. And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is happening now, so I'm doing this.
Because I mean, I think the next role was the Steven Soderbergh Unsane, which is so different.
Yeah.
And had that already been put in place while you were being the Queen?
No. I had a meeting with him in London. I mean, I loved that job. And I had a meeting with him in London, and he said that he'd seen my speech when I accepted a Golden Globe or something. No, not Golden Globe. I can't remember. But he'd seen a acceptance speech I'd done where I was utterly mad because I think I hadn't prepared anything and I was a bit flustered. And he was like, and I knew you could do this part because I saw that. And I went, okay. But that was me. I was being totally unprofessional. I was like just being slightly mad. And he was like, yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, okay. And yeah, I think he's very clever when he casts things anyway, Stephen. He always goes somewhere slightly interesting. And I think he enjoyed the fact that he was like, yeah, I'm going to put this woman in this film and make her do that. And it will be really weird.
Did you shoot that in the US?
In New York, yeah.
So is that your first US? I mean, I know you did the film with Nicolas Cage, but that wasn't shot. Was that like your first big sort of
shooting in America?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did a couple of reshoots for Season of the Witch in New Orleans. Yeah. But it was the first time I'd worked there. Yeah.
And is it a different vibe from like the UK, European?
Yeah, it's a different vibe, like most things are. No, I mean, not Steven Soderbergh's set. Steven is very it feels like you're sort of on the set of, it's very small crew. He's worked with loads of people for years and years and years. Everyone's at the top of their game, but wearing it very casually. And, so the sound guy's moving all his own equipment. Like, it's just everybody's making it because they want to make it, which is my favourite environment to be in. It's not like loads of stuff for no reason. And it's like being on the set of a film student, I should imagine, who's so excited about the prospect of making a film. It's just he's an Oscar-winning director,
right?
And so everything is just, there are no mistakes because he's so brilliant. And he was excited because we shot it on iPhone, so he was like a little kid, like going, oh look, I can put it against the wall, look at the angle I can get on the shot. And we do like 80 setups a day. We'd always finish early. he just it was infectious to be around, and he would edit as we were shooting. So I saw the finished film on the day we finished the film. So it's just and we did it in like 10 days. So he's totally infectious, and I was like, this is all, this is what I want to do. I want to do things that make me feel this way when I'm making it. So that was just like a dream. Yeah, that job.
I've got loads more questions to ask you, but I've just been given the 10-minute sign, so I need to just throw it. And we could go back to the. I'd like to ask one question at the end about what you're doing next. But
Okay.
Are there any questions from the audience? Already, yes.
There's 2 hands there. Sorry,
I think they're going to bring you a mic.
Yeah.
Mineral Prickland. That's it.
Will you hold it?
Just a second.
Okay. Hello, I'm asking for my friend here because there's a big crowd. You've played young Queen Elizabeth II in The Crown, and I was wondering whether you find characters which are based on real people easier or harder to play than the ones that are totally fictional, and also would you consider playing more characters based on real people in the future? Thank
Great
you.
question. Well done. Oh, you get a cuddle. That's nice. She's a great friend. All of it's quite hard. So I don't know. I mean, I quite like, if fictionalized people, things based on books are always incredible because you have the entire thing there for you to interpret and try and understand. I think, there's a pressure, for example, playing Helen in H is for Hawk. She's an incredibly charismatic, unique, dynamic person, which obviously is quite a thing to have to try and go, okay, I'll do that. And so you're often I find myself, especially because a lot of people who are real people in real stories are pretty extraordinary. That's really difficult. And I think my main thing is I don't want to lay claim to anyone's experience because I'm just there to interpret it and honor it in a way. And I want them to feel like I've been respectful for their life and what they've experienced. So that's the extra pressure. And it's actually I don't think made up characters, like fictionalized, that the screenwriters come up with, is pretty rare actually that I've done that. And also they've always been based on someone that they've known in a way as well. So all of it's quite tricky, to be honest. I wouldn't say one's easier or harder. I think they have benefits, and then they also have there's a curse to each of them as well. So yeah, I mean, so many real people are the people that I'm interested in. Like real stories of real ordinary people are the things that I am really interested in, because I think they're the things that need to be shown more, really. So yes, hopefully more jobs of real and unreal people.
Hi, thank you for being here and for answering our questions. You said you were struggling as a mother and as an actor at the same time. Would you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
About being a mother, and I mean, I don't think it's a unique experience of just being a mother and an actor. I think working and trying to do anything else at the same time is pretty hard, especially in the modern world. I think so much is required of us to succeed in all sorts of different areas, and we're told that we're supposed to succeed at that, and then we're also supposed to be really good at that. Otherwise you're getting it all wrong. And then at some point, which no one's ever reminded of, you've also got to keep yourself sane and take care of yourself, and at some point eat and have a wash. And there's not really enough hours in the day to do that. So I think just the expectations that are on working parents are really hard. And I certainly never found the answer. I still don't know the answer. I still think it's an absolute shit show in my house. So there's no way of it ever being perfect, I don't think. And you just have to try and hope that everybody's in some way happy. And that's all you can do. And I, from my own personal experience, I found it very, very difficult that my instinct was not, I couldn't necessarily honor my instinct because I was working as much as I would want to. And I think that but now I'm incredibly proud of myself for having been able to do it. And also I'm really, really fortunate that I now built my career at a point where lots of women can't, because they are new mothers or want to be mothers or are trying to be mothers at some point in the distant future. And I was able to build a very strong foundation of my career, which now gives me freedom now, which I think is an incredible luxury that I don't think a lot of people have.
Hi, I wanted to ask again about Wolf Hall. I thought it was really interesting what you said that you wanted to look at Anne Boleyn through the lens of Cromwell, and so it was his interpretation that was portrayed in the book that you decided to work on. And my question is, what was your lens preparing for the role, reading about Anne Boleyn? How do you see the second queen?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting. And actually, there was I don't know if I should tell this story. But I remember one of the first days of going for makeup tests, there was like a thing about whether I should wear mascara or not. This is the minutiae of what happens on TV and film. And the idea was to make me more attractive. And that was why Henry liked me. And not that they were putting that on it, but that was the sort of insinuation. And that was, I had already thought this about Anne, that being attractive or pretty or all those things was sort of irrelevant to her. She was attractive and she knew it, in my opinion. And she also, I think, found men pretty simple. She was the cleverer person in the room on all occasions. And she probably was the cleverest person in the room until she met Cromwell. And when she met Cromwell, that was her downfall because she thought she could play him and she couldn't play him. And she couldn't also use her sexuality in any way, her humour, her wit, her intelligence to win him round. Because he was sort of not. There is one scene in the show which is that he sort of slips into imagining a sort of romantic element of Anne, which her lovers would see, which Henry would see, but which he had never seen. And that was the only time that ever happened to him. And it was a sort of male-female dynamics. That's quite interesting that only happened that once. And I just think she had absolute and total conviction that she was making all the right choices all the time. And that was why it all ended up going how it went. Because she couldn't see that she was wrong. She couldn't see that she shouldn't have said that. She couldn't see that she should apologise. She couldn't see that it was slipping through her fingers. And that's why I think it's so tragic and so heartbreaking what happened to her in that story, because she was making it happen herself in a weird way. And the fact that her husband liked to get rid of his wives. But I found so much sympathy for that as well. Like, I totally get that she felt that power and was like, yeah, this is amazing, but didn't have the off switch. And also she was a woman trying to navigate the court of Henry VIII and have any power in any way. She was juggling so many plates. I really love Anne Boleyn, and I would stand up for her against Henry.
Oh, if only we could go back in time.
I mean, I'd be like, don't do it! Yeah, I mean, honestly, like so unbelievably brutal.
How much more time do you have for questions? Just quickly.
I would say one more question.
One more question.
Okay.
Ooh, that's the person on the
Make
floor
you
who has to decide.
Yes, so hello, thank you for being here, first of all. And my question is based on the future, considering that the movies you've played before were more historic drama. Could we expect any comedies, for example?
Well, I don't see this. I have done a comedy. It was a strange experience. It was a TV show called Hacks. And it was by the people who made Drop the Dead Donkey. And I love Drop the Dead Donkey. I used to watch it all the time growing up. And I struggled with the lack of laughter on a set when it's funny. I mean, maybe it's just that set. Maybe I wasn't very funny. But you'd say something funny and nothing would happen. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, because you sort of had to continue the scene truthfully, even though you were trying to be funny. It's very hard. It's really hard. You know, people in rom-coms, that's really hard. Like to be naturally cutesy and fun and like, oh, crazy. Like I find that I watch people do that and I'm like, how are you doing that? So yes, possibly, but it wouldn't be very funny. It's probably the answer. Yeah, I'll try.
But in terms, just to jump in there, in terms of what you've got coming next, you've got a children's movie.
Magic Faraway Tree.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a children's movie.
It's not.
For everybody.
Explain to me.
It's a family film.
I don't know. Do people in Switzerland know Enid Blyton? Like I read this as a child. I read it to my kids, and when I discovered that they were making this movie, I was like,
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know.
Oh.
Where's my publicist?
We have written about it on Deadline. We have written about it.
Okay, great. Well, it exists. It happened. It's Simon Farnaby, who is a genius and did Wonka, has written it, and it's magical and it's sweet and it's also optimistic, and it's about nature and about hopefully what people will come away with is the simple things are the best things. And it's beautiful to be in something. I've not done anything like that before. It was beautiful to be in something with children who aren't playing dramatic roles. So often I'm in things and the child I'm with, I'm like, they're crying and I just feel like an awful bystander to these poor children. And these children had the time of their life on this incredible adventure, really. It was like a theme park every day for them, this film set. And it was, I play a mum, I play Polly, and I get to be a mum in it. It's just such a lovely, soft feeling, that film. And it's nice to be in something that hopefully will just bring a lot of joy. And it's a modern interpretation of the classic.
Yeah,
so,
they have changed it, haven't they?
Yes, which I think is necessary because for lots of reasons. But yeah, hopefully it's received well by people who love it. And a new audience as well.
Well, I think that's a really nice high point to finish the conversation. Thank you for being so truthful and telling us so much about behind the scenes. It's been really lovely talking to you. So
and you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you.